Good morning, good afternoon to everyone that has joined this webinar. We are super excited to have you here today. We've got an hour scheduled. We've got Q&As at the end. We've got a panelist discussion. That's the forum that we're going to take with this. So who have we got in the digital room today? And the first and most important person I want to introduce is Dan Coates. Dan, welcome.
Thank you.
And Jason, I believe, is on the line as well, though he might be on mute. Jason, can you hear us? He's probably still on mute, but that's fine. And then there's myself, Martin Röver-Parkes, and I work in product at Questback. So today we want to talk all things market research. Dan, can I fire straight over to you, and we'll get straight in there with, I guess the first thing is platform selection. What goes through your mind when you're looking at platform selection?
Yeah, well, let me just introduce my firm, YPulse. It's a good context, a bit of background, but YPulse is a youth market research agency. We've been at this since 2007, so over 13 years now. And we focus on Gen Z and millennials. Our syndicated products cover 13 to 39-year-olds, although our custom work will cover children as well as tweens as well. And so we started building the business in 2007. And in 2007, we were shopping around for a combined panel management data collection platform. We're kind of with all the syndicated that we do, we collect over 250,000 quantitative interviews or completed interviews a year. So we were shopping around for a tool, and in all honesty, in 2007, the list of tools was kind of similar to what we see today. There haven't been a lot of new entrants, and so I think that what I was investigating back then is kind of still true today. But we basically were looking for a tool that was fully integrated. We didn't want to use one tool for one thing and then have to use another tool for another thing and worry about drop-offs or disconnects between those two tools. And then the other thing that we were looking for was the ability we're a small organization. I mean, 13 years in, we're 20 people. And so we don't have the luxury of a dedicated analytics department that just does tabulations and nothing, but everybody's kind of cross-trained. Everybody has their finger in different parts of the process based on their skill level, based on their role and authorization. So we were looking for a tool that would allow us to be able to sort of have various people participate. We couldn't afford to just have programmers involved or PhDs involved. We had to have a tool that would work for everybody. And that sort of led us down the path of narrowing it down to just a few platforms. And then again, because we're focused on youth, we absolutely have a situation where mobile is the sort of tool of choice. It's the thing that we use to collect most of our data. In fact, over 75% of our completed interviews are collected via mobile devices. And in 2007, if you recall, Western Europe really led the way when it came to mobile data collection. The US platforms were just sort of getting their heads wrapped around it. And so we discovered Questback, largely because we were looking for something, for a tool that could really do mobile and do it well. 13 years later, Questback still sort of leads the way in terms of mobile data collection. There's something, the sort of dynamic responsive layout format, but basically the platform senses the device that the respondent is using. And so we have a lot of flexibility. We tend to try to avoid grid questions, but grid questions don't work on mobile devices. And the Questback platform is intelligent enough to be able to say, oh, this is a mobile phone. So rather than a grid question, let's piece that down into a series of single ask questions. And so mobile really ruling, the hearts and minds of youth. That's the most critical component for us. Definitely, there's other things, the ability to kind of automate tasks. We've got a lot of syndicated studies. A massive brand tracker that collects just on its own over 100,000 interviews annually. So the ability to automate things is really helpful. And then, certainly, incentive management was a really big thing for us, but we can talk about that a little bit more. But definitely that was what was on our mind when we were selecting a platform 13 years later. I don't want to be unkind to my hosts at Questback, but we've looked at other platforms over the course of that 13-year period. You never really want to feel like you've done your business a disservice. We've looked at other platforms as early as earlier this year, and definitely felt like Questback remains the tool for us. Small, medium-sized research company, lots of velocity, lots of quantitative, and so Questback really serves our needs well.
Dan,
Dan, can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Dan, can I?
No.
So over the 13 years, have you noticed a change in your respondents between who's coming in on a mobile device or a laptop, if you will?
Yeah, when we first started, it was less than half. Now it's over 75%, and it's accelerating, Jason. I mean, young people live, eat, and breathe mobile devices. In fact, we're a little confused as to why we even have 25% of people coming in via laptop or a tablet. But definitely would say that in the modern age, this mobile centricity isn't going anywhere. I think from an industry perspective, you'll even notice that micro surveys are kind of the rage. And we've written a few scholarly articles on survey duration and the impact on younger respondents. And I can say this, that's published in Quirks. If you want to look up, just search YPulse in Quirks, and you'll find the article that we wrote for them. But the across the thousands of syndicated projects that we've done and custom projects that we've done, looking at survey participation versus the duration of the survey, our best practices are under 8 minutes for mobile surveys and under 13 minutes for anything on a desktop. Of course, you don't exactly write a survey for one platform or for the other, so we tend to have this mantra, which is only bad things happen after that 13th minute. What you notice is, you're really not talking to everybody anymore. Attrition or survey abandonment starts to really gain a head of steam. At the 15-minute mark, you've lost 25% of your sample. I mean, they're just, they're not willing to spend that much time in a survey. By 20 minutes, you've lost half of the people. So, definitely is the case that the biggest thing that we've noticed from the start to now, mobile has accelerated, and then just people are more and more impatient. We wrote a trend on that with young people. Ain't nobody got time for that. And certainly, in the value for value exchange that we have in terms of surveys, people aren't willing to give you half an hour of their life, 20 minutes of their life, even 15 minutes of their life. Ain't nobody got time for that.
So one building on that. So if 8 to 12 minutes is, let's say, the new standard, especially when dealing with youth, can you help us understand what you consider a micro survey?
Yeah, we've been experimenting with this. 3 questions would be like the sort of minimal. We used to have a mobile app called Thumb where it was kind of 1 question at a time. We found that was somewhat limited. Nowadays, the micro surveys that we do are 3 questions at a time. And certainly within the Questback platform, it's more than possible to have shorter and shorter surveys with that sort of integrated panelist administration and some of the segmentation tools that are available. We know who our panelists are. We don't need to act like this is the first and the only time we're ever going to talk to them. And that sort of data integration and linking really allows us to be able to say, okay, well, we can ask them 3 questions at a time. Over the next 10 sort of surveys that we do, we'll stitch all that together into the 30-question survey that the client wanted to ask in the first place.
And that reduces the loss of sample, and in turn gives you better insights.
What we found is that with micro surveys, if you have them sort of following on the heels of each other, in the Questback EFS panel tool, we definitely have the ability for somebody to come into a central screen and sort of see all the things that we want to ask them. And a third of the respondents, they have no problem. They'll knock off the 3-question surveys sequentially in a row. They'll knock through all of them. Other people do a chunk of it and then leave and come back and do another chunk later. Others will, answer some but not all. But certainly it's the case nowadays where that sort of integration and data stitching on the back end mean that, we lose more respondents if we insist on a 15-minute survey and lose 25% of them than if we have this micro survey approach where we're stitching things together. We might lose, I mean, it's a single digit. It's under 10% of people who have completed some but not all, which is kind of a better way to handle the whole issue of participation and survey drop-offs.
Okay, so it in a way, Questback is helping you with your overall panel health, because if these micro surveys are working well, you're getting less drop-offs, and you're handling your incentives properly and timely. I would imagine those two are working together hand in hand.
Yeah, I mean, definitely incentive management. You're absolutely right. Managing the interactions with panelists is critical. Making sure that we're, giving them no more than they'd like to give us, right? That sort of value for value exchange. With young people, they're very sensitive in terms of, what you're asking for and what you're giving them. And so, without a doubt, if you impose yourself on them, if you ask more than you give, if you ask more of them than they're willing to give, they abandon. And I will say this, young people are expensive to recruit, right? We spend a lot of time and care and attention getting, young people to participate. We spend an inordinate amount of time as an organization, encouraging 13 and 14-year-old boys to, sort of embrace the system. For some reason, sort of teenage girls are a little bit more stable. They stick around longer, they participate more, but young males are kind of the fruit flies of the market research world. And so we really have to manage them carefully. We really have to be mindful and thoughtful about, here's what we want you to do, here's what we're going to give you to do it, and then not overstay our welcome and not ask for more than they're willing to give.
So Dan, question. I think this leads nicely into incentives. Should we have a look at a little bit at incentives and how you can sort of get, I love that expression, fruit flies, get the fruit flies attracted more. I don't know whether I'm a fruit fly. But incentives, talk to me a little bit about, like, what's your experience there? How can that work? And how can that really work with sort of an incentive management system here with someone like Questback? That wasn't a very subtle plug, was it?
Yeah. Well, definitely, young people have a whole different expectation in terms of time and timing. Just like survey duration, they've got some real opinions about that. 5 minutes for them is an absolute eternity, right? On demand is kind of the way they live their lives. They do something, they're immediately rewarded. So that instant gratification is sort of baked into their DNA. And Questback really helps us in that regard. We've got an incentive management system. Everything's digital, right? We don't mail anybody anything. It's all sort of electronic vouchers. We use PayPal, we use Amazon, we use a number of different, stored sort of value capabilities. We're able to integrate with third-party providers that specialize and focus on incentive management. So definitely would say that the first thing that we have to do is be able to give them money immediately. The problem is that a clever hacker could basically strip our bank accounts, overnight. So we need really sophisticated security. Questback really helps us with not only the ability to hand out money. I mean, quite frankly, you could set up a web page that just hands out vouchers. That'd be easy. But for Questback, what we have is sort of strict criteria, the ability to be able to make sure that we're handing out money to people who deserve it, who warranted it, who, without a doubt are part and parcel of the study that we undertook. And that even to some extent we use, Questback in combination with a couple of other, plugins that Questback, really facilitates through their integrations, a Relevant ID, and something that Relevant ID offers called Real Answers. So we're actually able to look at an open-ended response, figure out if it's gibberish or if it's real, and use that to inform our incentive management platform of, this is a real person versus this is a scammer that shouldn't be paid. So, the security plus the instantaneous, aspect of it is really critical. Young people won't wait around to get paid, and I was
going to say, have you had any personal experience?
Indeed. I was talking to Martin just earlier this week. This past weekend, not a word of a lie. This past weekend, all of a sudden I'm getting inundated with PayPal payment requests, and I'm a little confused because normally I pay people what I owe them immediately, but it turns out that over the course of the weekend we had a really busy weekend in terms of redemptions, and we ran out of Amazon voucher coupons. And so some enterprising young participant decided, okay, well, if they can't pay me right now, let me figure out who the president of the organization behind this survey is, and let me send them a bill. So I was actually getting payment requests from a respondent who was like, hey, buddy, I did your survey, now pay me. And yeah, so definitely, when that's the reality for a young person, they're impatient as all get out. And let me sort of spoiler alert, they're not going to get more patient over time. Their world revolves around this instant gratification. So what we've noticed over the 13 years that we've been surveying, millennials and now Gen Z, is that if they're impatient when they're 13, they're also impatient when they're 20, and they're also impatient when they're 29. And so those of you that don't specialize on youth, just wait, it's coming. You're going to get a generation of people who, quite frankly, won't be satisfied with you sending them a check in the mail, won't be satisfied with you sending them a stored value card, won't be satisfied with you doing anything other than paying them immediately for the effort that they've expended.
Awesome.
But definitely
Awesome.
incentive management is a big part of the game. It's real money. I mean, quite frankly, it's this combination of immediacy and instant gratification, but then also rock solid security. I can tell you this, we've never lost a dime due to Questbacks, inability to manage it. If anything, what we have to do is kind of diligently just make sure that those are responding. And listen, there's a difference between a fraudulent respondent, an authentic respondent, and maybe just a lazy respondent. And so a lot of our efforts when it comes to managing our panelists are kind of teach them the right way, teach them what we're expecting them to do. I'm not going to lie, in the early days, we had a very vigorous panel manager, community manager, who, quite frankly, if you didn't meet her high bar, you were sort of out on your ear. But over time, we realized the cost to recruit them, and then the fact that they've had little or no training for a 13-year-old male. This is probably the first survey they've ever taken in their lives, and so we focus on sort of coaching them, setting expectations, helping them understand what a good respondent looks like and what a bad respondent looks like. It's kind of an evergreen, renewable resource. We feel that if we treat them well, if we make sure that we set expectations and reward them for delivering against those expectations, they'll probably be a participant in survey research for the rest of their lives. Whereas if we set a high bar and without a lot of explanation or encouragement, kick them to the curb if they don't perform, then we're probably doing a disservice to the industry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but yeah, incentives, top of the list for sure.
Okay, brilliant. Are there any top incentives that you recommend? That's sort of just a curiosity question from my side there.
Yeah, I will say that early on, PayPal was kind of a curious thing for them. A lot of them didn't have PayPal accounts. Nowadays, PayPal accounts are ubiquitous. Cash is kind of king. Venmo is a little harder to sort of buy vouchers for, but Venmo is probably more popular with them. But they all know how to get money from one place to another in this day and age. And then the other thing is, listen, millennials are a very altruistic generation, and we thought donating funds to social causes and things that they believe in would be a real winner. Turns out, they just like the money. About 10% of young people will donate their points to a cause, and we spend a lot of time sort of figuring out what are the right causes, what do they want to donate to, and have found in the end that really in the end 90% of people will just take the cash. Thanks very much. We've had behavioral economists beg and ask us for the data that we pulled out of the Questback system. There's been some scholarly papers on incentives and young people and just the behavior of what they do and how they do it. Punchline, what young people tend to do is they come into our system, They do enough survey activity to gain enough points to get that first threshold. Our lowest threshold is $5.
Yep.
They immediately cash that out to make sure that we're real. And so, you know, after they've been paid and they understand, okay, listen, this is actually legit. I do some work, I get paid. Then they tend to sort of leave it in there longer. It tends to get banked with us, and they save up for something that they want to buy on Amazon. You know, usually we'll see redemptions at the $20 or $30 level, you know, something significant. We see massive redemptions going on during holidays. So a little bit of, hey, I'm buying something for myself on Black Friday, a little bit of, you know, I'm shopping for a girlfriend, boyfriend, friends, family around the holidays. And so, you know, when we do our messaging on the recruitment side of things, we definitely lean into that fact that, you know, one, we need to establish legitimacy as early as possible so that they stick around and keep playing the game. And then two, you know, usually it's around some, you know, they're not living off of this money. They're looking to make some purchase, either as a gift or for themselves. And so, you know, between keeping it in their bank account or keeping it in our panel management system, once they trust us, they're just as happy to leave it with us.
Dan, I've actually had a question come in from the other side of the pond. That's from one of our European attendees. He has had some bad experiences with financial incentives where it's driven some sort of really bad response quality. What are your views on sort of other incentivizations like product samples or being the top of a leaderboard or status?
Yeah, there's definitely lots of good that can come from, you know, making it so that there's sort of badges and rewards. You know, young people definitely respond well to, you know, to anything that allows them to, you know, show their dedication to something, to a cause. You know, their street cred is based on sharing with their friends their achievements. And so, you know, badges and causes are all good. But at the same time, you know, what we found is that, you know, young people also understand the value of their time. And you know, listen, it could be the difference between US kids versus, you know, European kids. But in the end, you know, I would feel pretty uncomfortable trying to power the 250,000 surveys that we do annually off of, you know, sort of feel good stuff. I know for a matter of fact that when given the option between the feel good option versus the monetary option, 90% of people, kids in the US, are taking the monetary option. And you know, of course, the argument that some would say is, you know, are they really legitimate respondents? Are they professional respondents? I mean, listen, we incentivize young people at a rate that's equivalent to $10 an hour. We kind of feel like, listen, if you could earn $10 for an hour's worth of work mowing lawns or doing something like that, we'll pay you $10 an hour for survey activity. Of course, as we talked about earlier, we would never give somebody an hour-long survey, but a 15-minute survey is $2.50. We definitely index everything against that, you know, making sure that young people know the deal, right? So a 15-minute survey is, you know, $2.50, and a, you know, 20-minute survey is $3.33. Giving them that visibility and that transparency into here's how you earn it, and here's the duration of it. And then of course, you know, we don't tell them it's for them individually. They could sit there and stare at the screen for 60 minutes expecting to be paid $10. It's based on the average amount of time that it takes people to take the survey. So you know, we feel that transparency and that clarity around here's what we're giving, here's what you're getting, makes it a good value for value exchange. So far, so good. Touch wood. Young people have been willing to play the game on those terms. That being said, you know, I understand the sentiment. It'd be great if I could motivate them with things other than financial. We've tried a number of times in the past. You know, in the end, you know, it's sort of we don't have a huge unlimited reservoir of young people to sort of churn through. It costs us money. I mean, you know, the cost to recruit a young person in my world is just slightly under $10. So I've spent $10. You know, I'm going to pay them $2.50 for every 15 minutes they spend with me. I mean, you do the math, right? Like I've got to keep them around for you know 6 or 7 survey opportunities in order to be able to sort of, you know, completely amortize down my cost of acquisition. And we're super formulaic. We've been doing this long enough that we We can tell you what a good recruitment partner is versus a bad recruitment partner is based on, how participatory the respondents are and how long they stick around. That's our core metric.
Dan, thank you. That actually segues really nicely into the third section that we wanted to speak about today, which is partnerships. Now, memory serves me right, and this is longer than my memory. We've had one for nearly a decade. Is that right?
Yeah, 13 years we've been using the Questback platform. We were the second customer in the U.S. The first customer, used to mail checks, over to Europe. But we were definitely the first real commercially viable one. We're really happy to be able to find a company from Western Europe that was just as good at mobile as they were, and we came out of the gate with some high aspirations. For us young people, when we started the panel, it was just students, and when we actually really first started, it was just college students. We were kind of drafting off the back of Facebook. If you'll recall, back in 2006, the only way to be on Facebook was to be a college student, and so we, in the early days, built the panel largely off of integrations and partnerships with Facebook. And so what we wanted to be able to do was augment what we knew about these college students by figuring out their academic institution. To this day, the ability to know what school each panelist goes to if they're a student is a real big benefit. We've got lots of programs where we're measuring the effectiveness of ambassador programs at this list of 20 or 25 colleges. So understanding the school that they go to is kind of an important priority for our student panelists. And then there's all this great and rich information about academic institutions available from the National Center for Education Statistics. They've got a database called YPulse, and so when we first approached Questback 13 years ago, our first ask was, hey, we want to, in the panelist onboarding, or that first panelist profile survey, we want to be able to ask their institution, but we want to be able to give them a list that's drawn from this YPulse database. And then once they select the school from YPulse, we want a bunch of data from YPulse to be imported into their master profile, into what we knew about them, so that if we ever needed to do surveys where it's like, students of public institutions, students of private institutions, students of schools with 20,000 or more students, we would have all of that embedded in their profile. And so, Questback helped us with that. Within the first 3 months of our existence, we were already the most advanced student panel in the universe, right? So that just sort of shows how, you don't have to be able to do everything in order to be able to be successful. In fact, we don't have, honestly, any real technologists on our team. We rely on the technologies of others, Questback, Tableau, and we feel like, being a really good user of an off-the-shelf tool is in itself a competitive advantage. Questback focuses on making sure that their tool is advanced. They've got really hundreds of programmers that are adding features day to day. I'll share that my experience before starting YPulse was with a Silicon Valley firm we won't mention today, but they insisted on doing everything themselves, including having their own survey data collection platform. They got some open source software and then hacked it and used it. And I can only tell you, I was in charge of sales and marketing at the time. I can only tell you how painful it is to have to stand in front of a client and tell them that you lost data, that the pipes and the plumbing, ruptured and spilt, sewage all over the floor. It wasn't pretty. And then what's even worse than telling a client that you've lost their survey is telling them that out of the 45 questions that they wanted to ask, you only collected 44 of them, and that a single question was the thing that bust. And definitely, there's only one resolution of that problem. It's to ask those 45 questions all over again, because you can't exactly go back and find those people again. At least you can with the Questback tool. We do lots of recontact surveys, but with the tool that we had grown on our own, that we'd hand rolled ourselves, there was just no option to be able to do a recontact to fill in the blanks on that one missing question. And if you think about the MR industry, this partnership it's kind of the model, right? We're a partner to our clients, right? Companies like, Apple and Amazon and Disney and Spotify, they're too busy doing their jobs to figure out the marketing research and the implications of the marketing research and the strategy as to how they should, communicate and interact with young people. So they leave that to us, and then, we're so focused on them that we leave the, the software and the technology to Questback. So definitely is the case that all of us in this supply chain should focus on our highest value, most important mission critical aspect, and then find people that you can trust to cover off the bits that support that.
Awesome.
And Dan, if I may, you mentioned working with the best technology at the time, and if I'm not mistaken, you are using the Tableau plug for Questback and for reporting.
Everything we do from a reporting perspective is in Tableau, and I'd encourage everybody to explore that. Tableau is like the 800-pound gorilla of data visualization. We looked long and hard at a number of different tools. Tableau is it's definitely on the sort of somewhat demanding side if you want to be able to really go in and create your own visualizations. But in our company and with our clients, that's probably one of the highest value endeavors that we could possibly dedicate ourselves to, showing them data in rich and meaningful ways. If you think about it, we went through all this work. I mean, we landed the client, we created the research design, we collected the data, we incentivized respondents, we cleaned out fraudulent response or inattentive respondents. We tabulate it, we look at it, we interpret it. The last place to fall down in this entire process is at the finish line, when just a little bit of extra effort on the reporting side makes things super clear, makes things really vivid and understandable. We've got a saying in our organization, which is, really 2 people will ever look at the tables, 5 people will ever look at the PowerPoint deck, but 50 people will look at that infographic that you created, and 500 will watch the 2-minute video that you created on the basis of the infographic. So we really focus a lot on taking the results and wringing every last drop out of it, and Tableau is a super important part of that for us.
Awesome.
Jason, Daniel, I've actually had another question come in. We've got a few for the end as well. Before we carry on, this one to both of you. What are your thoughts on the impact of COVID and social distancing on market research? I'm thinking here about interviews in the streets, the recruitment, etc. It'd be awesome to hear both your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that there are certain things that happen. We're researchers, but we're sort of cultural researchers. We're exploring generations and how they interact with brands in their lives on the basis of the sort of the flow and the arc of society. This was as big as an event as I can think of. Boomers were kind of defined by the assassination of JFK and landing on the moon. Xers were kind of defined by sort of this nihilistic response post 60s to a lot of things, childbirth, parenting. We were the first generation where they invented a pill to prevent us. So definitely, we had our sort of anxiety and hangups over that. Millennials came of age during a time of great prosperity. They were treasured offspring. They're the manifestation of all their parents' hopes and desires. Gen Z definitely came of age during a little bit more of a post-Great Recession. You better have a plan, you better have a backup plan for your plan, and you better have a backup for your backup plan. Jason has young children. My youngest is 5, and I got to tell you, we are going to be seeing the impact of COVID on these young people 20, 25 years from now. I'm telling my 5-year-old, to wear a mask out in public and to be careful about, interpersonal contact and to wash her hands after, everything she touches. This is going to have societal impacts that are going to be undeniable down the road. As a researcher, I'm a little bit excited about investigating and studying that. As a parent, I'm just distraught over the whole thing. But that being said, I think in terms of the research trade, I think that we're going to have a lot of interactions become kind of sanitized. So anything that we were doing in person, just, forget about that. I can't imagine. So I have a personal experience. We were doing a study for Kotex. It was the launch of You by Kotex. And we were doing on-college intercepts with female college students, talking about, some different campaign concepts. And it was during H1N1. So we had one interviewer after another grow sick. And so you can only imagine how bad it got that I found myself standing with a clipboard and a pen on the campus of San Diego State University in California, asking young female college students about feminine hygiene products, right? It turned out pretty well in that they were like, oh, geez, clearly you're not meant to be here doing this. And so I'm just gonna, I'm gonna be really kind and gracious and generous when I tell you what I think about things, and I'll explain it for you because I know you don't have a clue. But yeah, I'd say that, H1N1 was bad enough. I too, after we collected the last interview, I collapsed in a hotel room, sick as a dog. I can't imagine being able to get, in-person interviewers, recruit them nowadays. I can't imagine, the hoops you'd have to jump through. We were already pretty virtual. We were kind of following the, the respondent really. If you really want to weird out young people, invite them to a boardroom, sit them around the table, and ask them questions sequentially in a group setting. And by the way, there's a full-length mirror on the wall, and behind that mirror are a bunch of people watching you. That freaks them out. They're much more comfortable online. They feel completely, open, able to share their opinions without judgment, without sort of any risk in an online environment. So take that sentiment and times it by about 100 now that we've had COVID. I just can't imagine talking a young person into any in-person interaction. And listen, we've converted over, live focus groups to online focus groups in the last 3 months. We've had people ask us for bids on in-person stuff, and quite frankly, we've just refused them. We can't imagine how you would make that work. I know that there's a lot of great organizations that apply the qualitative trade, and they're coming up with great innovations and really applying themselves to the task. But I got to tell you, we get 95% of the information that we would in an in-person interaction and an online interaction. It's better for the respondents. We don't have to pay them as much, and it means that I don't have to be standing on the campus of a university asking questions as president of the organization that frankly, I shouldn't be asking.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. I think we got enough time to go into the fourth and final section that we wanted to today. We've kind of already touched on it a little, the support element of it. Dan, we've gone through the platform selection, great bits on incentives, about how the partnerships work and how that's really important. What do you look for on the support side of this?
Yeah, so listen, part of my job is to scan the horizon and look for opportunity. That's great. Again, having Questback as a partner allows me to do that. But another big part of my role is to scan the horizon and look out for icebergs. And the biggest iceberg for me is sort of legal risk with my clients. We're a high volume, high availability shop. We do 250,000 surveys. And those support 60 reports that we write annually. We've got a brand tracker that measures 400 plus brands, and our clients of that are paying us solid 5 figures to access this data, and they're all Fortune 500 companies, right? And they're powering the growth of their organizations based on the insights of the young people. So necessarily they I've never given my contract to a Fortune 500 company and had them say, oh, that's great, we'll sign that. I get these contracts that honestly make me pale. I sit there and I read through all 70 pages of them. They have SLAs, service level agreements. If there's any mention of any technology whatsoever, nowadays, big corporations, they've got all of this contractual language that has to apply. So we sign SLAs, we have to satisfy security requirements, We have to pass virtual threat assessments. I mean, it's sort of game on. It's a big deal. And data protection and data privacy, if we're collecting it on their behalf, you know, that's about the most important thing ever. And so you know, listen, we're not doing any of this stuff. We're relying on the Questback platform to be able to support us. And you know, let me give you a couple of things that I think about day to day. I sign SLAs that you know, guarantee a 99.5% availability. And frankly, there's companies that want more than that. They want it 99.9. They want 99.95. I mean, you know, it's crazy how little give they want to give me. The reality is I managed to talk them down from that ledge. I can sustain a 99.5. But at 99.5, that means I get to have 4 hours of downtime a month across every service, across everything that we do, 4 hours, right? So a little hiccup here, a little hiccup there, the timer starts. The second that we're down for more than 4 hours within a monthly period, I've got make goods. I got to hand people money back. And by the way, it's not just dollar for dollar. Hey, you know, we lost an hour's worth of service, and so here's what 1 hour out of 30 days looks like. It's with penalties, you know, multiples. So 2 times, 3 times, 5 times what they've paid back as a penalty against the SLA. So what that means is, you know, you got to have a couple of things in your corner. One, you've got to have monitoring and systems that allow you to say like, hey, there's a problem and it started at this point at this time. You know, moreover, you've got to have partners where you can pick up the phone and call them, and it's not a, yeah, we'll look into that tomorrow, or yeah, we'll get back to you next week. It's like, hey, you know, like the clock's ticking. I got 4 hours here. So a lot of what I worry about in terms of support is, you know, is have I got a team of people that are proactive, that are available, you know, that know how to solve problems and then how to solve them quickly. And you know, for 13 years now, we've been relying on Questback to be able to do that. The good news is, touch wood, I've never been sued. I've never, you know, I've had to make a make good here and there, but I've never lost the client over a support issue. You know, that speaks volumes to Questback. And so definitely would say that you know, this will sound really really horrible to some of the folks dialing in from Europe, but you know, I work with companies that have more lawyers than I have staff, right? So I'm just constantly walking on eggshells, you know, worrying about, you know, making sure that I'm delivering on the promise, you know, that I've given to them. And you know, Questback's a really big part of fulfilling that promise for me.
Yeah, I've heard that from the other side of the pond that the lawyers have lawyers themselves.
Well, listen, you know, I know Jason's daughters are probably destined to be lawyers themselves. They're smart enough for sure, and you know, definitely is the case that you know, you in the U.S. it's a high wire act. You have to perform, and the failure for lack of performance is the cost of failure is high. So we just we keep our eye on the other end of that high wire act and keep stepping forward. You know, making sure that there's a safety net that Questback provides underneath us.
Yeah.
You know, other aspects. I mean, in terms of support, you know, we've been working with Questback for 13 years now, so we don't usually have to ask a lot of questions about how would I do this or how might I that. You know, several of the staff that work for me are ex-Questback employees. You know, definitely is the case that we've got a pretty good brain trust internally. But that being said, you know, I know from interactions that, you know, if they'll solve the engineering, you know, middle of the night bits, you know, the questions and the how-tos and what would be the best way for me to do this or to do that are kind of a layup, really.
Mm.
Dan, could I ask, has the fact that Questback has global offices helped at all? Do you find that they're helping you in other time zones? So when you show up to work in the morning, they've been at your issue already?
Yeah, the chase the sun sort of approach, absolutely. I know that one of the main, you know, sort of players in our support ecosystem is based in India. I know that you know, the folks that you know, really, if it's sort of core, you know, fundamental stuff, largely they're in Western Europe. But definitely is the case that, you know, handoffs between the folks in Dallas, sorry, in Houston, to the folks in India, to the folks in Germany. There's definitely a sophisticated process for that for Questback.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I have to smile there at that question, because I smile because I think of the Finnish time zone, because we're up in Finland, right over through to the Texas time zone, and that makes for a super interesting day sometimes. Cool.
That's great.
So I want to wrap up with just a couple of final questions that have come in. The first is, and some of these have been touched on a little, but I think a recap on them will be quite good. How do you effectively handle panelist qualification?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing online research, not a word of a lie, since 1996, right? So the big thing is, authenticity. The big thing is, how do you know that these people are who they really are? Layer into that I'm talking about, young people, that we've got, we do a lot of the stuff that we do is lots of quotas based on education statistics, based on census data. I can tell you that if you wanted to scam the survey research process, pass yourself off as a African-American 13-year-old male, and there's no end of surveys that want you to participate. The reality is that, the kind of rewards, as it were, so let's say I maxed out my time, and by the way, we probably pay 2.5 times the industry average for incentives. So you're not going to be able to make much off of us. We actually have strict guidelines in terms of how many surveys a participant can take within a certain period of time. So you might max make $2.5, $5 off of us a month. You're not going to put yourself through college off of that. Then you shift over to other panels and other providers. You're going to, that $2.50 that I mentioned is probably about 85 cents for a 15-minute survey. So the people that feel that, people are taking surveys, scamming surveys to make money, boy, you got to be kind of underachieving. We do know that there's some parts of the world where 85 cents is a lot of money. Again, we use a combination of Questback's geolocation capability plus some respondent identification and deduplication tools through relevant ID and real answers to make sure that we are actually talking to kids in the U.S. That we're not talking to some a pool of survey takers in China. But that being said, the reality is that this isn't exactly a great way to make tons of money. There are better pursuits for criminal enterprises to use in this. The bot farms and all that kind of stuff, they're actually at this point pretty easy to suss out. You look for straight lining, you look for responses to open ends that actually are relevant. And let's be honest, for us, we do some cleaning on the back end. It's less than 10% of the data that we collect. So we just collect 10% more than we need, and then meticulously go through and look at the open ends and look at the integrity of the data, and then boot out some sample that we felt is inauthentic or fraudulent or just inattentive. Quite frankly, sometimes kids can be a little bit lazy. So definitely would say that there's tools and there's ways to deal with that. All of us as researchers have had that dark night of the soul when we ask ourselves, is this real? Is what we're doing real? And are these people real? And is it all real? Just give yourself a pinch. It's all real. We're not. Thank God we're not building bridges off of this data. We're approximating reality. We're giving brands a slightly better shot at success by giving them, data that is, that's accurate, that's representative. But without a doubt, it's not perfect. We put a lot of care and attention into it. But listen, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Young respondents who will eventually become middle-aged respondents won't play this game any other way. You're never going to go back to the good old days where women with white gloves on will go knock door to door like Burke did in the 60s in order to ask the lady of the house a bunch of questions about what laundry detergent she uses. So definitely, I like to be practical. I like to be realistic. I live in the here and now, and aside from protecting yourselves with good technology and good process, there's no reason to sort of talk yourself out of the benefits of feedback and survey data.
Fantastic. I'm very aware that we're coming up for the hour. I think there's time for one more question, and that would be, what's the best way to do, and this might be kind of linked, what is the best way to do reliable sampling? And then we'll go on to the final slide.
Yeah. I mean, listen, my colleagues at APOR would skewer me for this. And listen, I understand that, in order to be able to calculate margin of error, the fundamental, sort of assumption is that it's a random sample. And, really, one of my early stats professors said that there's only two people that can draw a truly random sample, and that's God and the warden at the prison you're in. So definitely, we make compromises, whether it's RDD and telephone or whether it's online. Definitely would say that, statistical reliability means that you're actually talking to people who are members of the population that you're looking for, and that they're giving their opinions in a way that's sort of honest and accurate. And definitely is the case that a lot of these things that we do, there's actually 7 different sources of sample error. Everybody focuses on there's 7 different sources of survey error. Everybody focuses on sample error as though that's the only one to worry about. It's not actually. The number one source of survey error is your questions are dull and boring. Your questions are confusing and overly worded. I have to tell you, we work with young people, and we have a war on words. We never ask any questions that start with, thinking of the last time that you were in a department store, how many of the following? I mean, it's like, it's not a real situation. It's not how they think about the world. It's not how they're going to answer that question, right? So, we tend to, if you look at one of our surveys, there's maybe 10 words tops, right, in the question. And, in terms of the responses, you will never see an infinite scroll of different, options. I mean, we're mindful of the fact that they're busy, that they're focused on other things, that this is just a little part of something that they do between the major things that they do in their lives. What's important to them are things like boyfriends and girlfriends and spending time with their friends and, going out. Survey research, let's be honest, it's relegated to a very, very small sort of priority in their lives. So how do we combat that? We make ourselves easy to work with. We make ourselves smaller and bite-sized, that they can give us a little bit of an opinion, get a little bit of a reward back, so that they can then turn the incentives that we've given them into a present for that person that they care so much about and want to spend more time with. So, I think we tend to overinflate our importance in the world. We should really think hard about where we fit into the respondents' lives, and we should tune everything we do around that. So really, we, at YPulse, we've got 2 mantras, and that guides everything we do in terms of respondent interaction. The first one is, leave the fish in the fishbowl. There is no way on God's green earth you're going to get them to come to you, right? They're in their environment. They're in their, their sort of reality. So you need to find ways to get into their reality. One of the best things that we ever did with the Questback platform was, in the early days, we created a Facebook app that allowed them to be able to sort of answer questions in and around their interactions on Facebook. Nowadays, it's mobile, right? So a mobile app that takes all the questions that we've created in EFS survey and routes them through to an app on their phone that they can answer, in the space that it takes between catching a bus from here to there, in the few minutes that it takes to go from class to class. If you approach the world from how they think and view it, from their mindset, from the amount of space that they have for you in their lives, everything changes, right? We will send clients back out the door, with their 30-minute, everything but the kitchen sink surveys. We're a little kinder than that. We'll take that work, but we'll chop it into 3 10-minute surveys. We'll administer those sequentially over a period of time, and we'll stitch the data together on the back end. But you really have to be mindful of what your role is in their lives before you start, trying to interact. that was a bit long-winded, and you can definitely tell that I have a point of view on it. But if it spawned any other questions, I'd be happy to answer those too.
No, fantastic. Thank you. I'm actually scribbled a note that maybe this can be a whole second part in the webinar series, but that's yeah, fantastic.
Indeed.
Wrapping up now, thank you all so much for taking the time. A very big thank you to Dan and YPulse for joining us today. We welcome you to visit questback.com. You can request a demo, get in touch with us. Let us be an extension to your market research team. Questback.com. Massive thank you to you all again, and we will follow up with an email. And if you do have any questions, yeah, get in touch. Questback.com. Dan, thank you very much.
Thanks, Martin. Thanks, Jason. Great to see you
Jason,
both.
have a great day. Thank you, and speak to you all soon.
See you too. All right. Bye, guys.